Fred Perry was born in Stockport, England in 1909. His family moved to Bolton and then Wallasey. His father Sam unsuccessfully fought the Stockport by-election in 1920 and in the 1922 general election was again unsuccessful. However, in 1923 general election he won the seat of Kettering, thus becoming a Labour Member of Parliament. By now the family had moved to Ealing, London. Young Fred was already showing his sporting prowess as a table tennis player.
What I used to do was to push the kitchen table, which happened to be exactly half the size of a table tennis table, up against the wall and put the net up and just hit for hours and hours, and I drove everybody nuts. And I liked it, and you learn your spins, you learn the angles, and when you really come to consider it, the angles and the spins are exactly the same. And then I sort of played for the YMCA, and I played in a couple of tournaments, and I did rather well, and then I got to play for England. After I'd won the championship, the table tennis championship of the world in Budapest in 1929, I made up my mind I had to either do one or the other. So there was nowhere to go from there, and from then on I said, right, now it's lawn tennis.
In 1933, after several years of steady progress at his tennis career, Perry won his first Grand Slam title at the US Championships against Jack Crawford. He then won the 1934 Australian Championships, beating Crawford in the final. In the Wimbledon final, Perry again faced Crawford.
He serves again. Perry returns down the backhand. Crawford, Perry, Crawford, backhanded. Perry backhanded. Crawford, very deep. Perry, Crawford, Perry back again. Crawford drives into the net. Advantage to Perry, set and match point to Perry. It's picked up from 40 love to advantage Perry. Crawford serves the backhand and comes in, but it was a foot fault. He serves again. A double fault. A double fault into the net. Game and set and match to Perry.
Of course, Dan and I were very close. We always have been, and we almost grew up in the game together. And I think he knew more about me than I did myself. And he always used to sit at the end of the court, just where we come in. And after I beat Crawford, Dan meets me at the corner, and he's crying. So I thought, well, this is a bit funny, you know. And they brought my father down from the stand, and he was behind the barrier, and he was crying. And then Anthony Sabelli, who was then secretary of the association, comes up and says, Fred, my boy, and he's crying. And I said, what the heck is this, you know? The best day of my life, and everybody's crying.
Perry won the US Championships over Wilmer Allison and then won the 1935 French Championships over Gottfried von Cram, becoming the first man to win all 4 Grand Slam titles. At Wimbledon, Perry beat von Cram again. At Wimbledon 1936, Perry faced von Cram in the final.
I was on the massage table and I said to the masseur, you know, he said, oh, you're in great shape. I said, how am I? He said, you're in great shape. And I said, well, I have to be today. He said, what makes you think so? I said, well, I've got a rough match today. Because this was very important to me, not only for the third time, because of the professional angle too, because in those days you were all amateur. And if you won Wimbledon once or twice, you turned pro quickly, you see, because that was where the money was. So he said, oh no, he said, he's got a cramp right now. So I said, well, you wouldn't have to know where he was, would you? So he said, well, no. I said, I can't tell you that, but he's going to have a lot of trouble stretching wide to the right, you see. So we came out here, and I had old Pop Summers, wonderful guy, who used to help me in everything, and he studied players. He knew what they couldn't do, and that's all I gave them. In the practice, beforehand, we only had maybe a couple of minutes. We didn't go on for 4 or 5 minutes like they do now. Every ball I hit, you know, to his backhand was just where he didn't have to move at all, but I couldn't get the range on the forehand for some reason, and it kept on stretching him, you see. And we had about 7 deuces in the first game, but I was always 15 love, 30-15. I always had the advantage point. And on the left-hand court, the backhand side, I would serve him wide on the backhand because he couldn't hurt me. He couldn't hit the ball past me. And as I was fitter than he was anyway, there was no way if he can't hit the ball past you that he's going to beat you. Well, when we saw him wince, I looked up at Pop Summers, who used to sit sort of just behind what is now the BBC commentary boxes. And he gave me the high sign to go after him. And I think the score was something like 1-1 love and 1 or 1-1 and love or something. There was just no match. But I was a great believer in if you get the man down, you stamp on him. You never give a man a second chance if you can avoid it, because he wouldn't give you one either. And if you've got him on the ropes, then you make sure that he stays there.
Perry won the US Championships over Don Budge and then turned professional at the end of the year.
So I was thrown out of every club I had. When we toured in America in 1937, and Vines and I opened in Madison Square Garden in January, and we had 17,800 and something people in the place, and the gate was $52,000, which was a record anywhere for an indoor tennis match until Billie Jean King played Bobby Riggs in Houston. Then we came to England, or tried to come to England in 1937 in the summer, and we were not permitted to play on the courts of any tennis club that was affiliated to the Lawn Tennis Association. They had been told that they were not to hold the Perry-Vise matches, and they just wouldn't do it. So that I had a friend of mine, the late Bernard Sunley, who built us a wooden court, which gave us a truck to carry it around, and it was hinged and put together. And instead of playing Liverpool at maybe 1,500 people, we played Anfield at the Cop End, and we put the court down and played on it. And we had 10,000 people or 12,000 people at Anfield.
Perry lost World Pro Tours to Ellsworth Vines in 1937 and 1938 and to Don Budge in 1939, though he did win the US Pro in 1938 and 1941. He continued playing the pro circuit until 1959 when he was 50 years old. In addition to commentating for BBC Radio for many years until his death, Perry also commentated on ITV in the 13 years they covered the event in the 1950s and 1960s. In the early 1950s, Perry set up a successful company manufacturing sportswear. His first 3 marriages were short-lived. One was to the actress Helen Vinson. In 1952, Perry married Barbara Rice. They remained married until Fred's death in 1995. He continued traveling the world, spectating and commentating on events, and had been visiting the Australian Open when he suffered a fall in his hotel room.
Mr. Tennis, I think. When I come to this country, he helped me a lot. So not just by giving me this equipment, but just helping me when I played the final against Borg. So for me, he was a very special man.
Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.